We've been camping at the foot of Mount Sinai for quite a while. And we're going to remain there for quite a while longer. It's always astonishing every year when I go through the Torah, how much time we spend at Sinai and how quickly the last 38 years of our journey to the Promised Land actually are narrated, because they really happen in the final chapters of the book of Numbers, because then the book of Deuteronomy is a recap of Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. So everything really happens in the last few chapters of Numbers. But the rest of the Torah is really, we stood at Sinai for what seems to be an eternity. Right now, as we are standing at Sinai or camping at Sinai, what is happening through the book of Leviticus is that we are enshrining the clergy, the leadership, the liturgical and religious leadership of our nation. We are giving Aaron and his sons, the Levites and the Cohens, all the tools they need. We're dressing them up. There are special garments that the priest has to wear, and we are learning about all the rules and all the laws of what it means to create a sacred community and what it means to serve a sacred community. How do you create a brand new spiritual and religious context for a people who just left 400 years of slavery, a people who had lost its spiritual side? So that's what Leviticus is really busy with. And as part of this teachings about how do you create a religious practice for a newly founded people are the institution of animal sacrifice. Animal sacrifice, however barbaric we seem to believe it to be 3,000 years, 4,000 years later, for the time it was immense progress, because it was an evolution. It was an evolution of consciousness. It was an evolution that stepped out of human sacrifice and projected that or transmuted that to animal sacrifice. But animal sacrifice in itself, beyond the seemingly barbaric sacrificing of actual animals, has deep significance. The people were to present to the priest in the temple the best of their flock, the best of what they are. And they did that for multiple reasons, some of which were for atonement, right? When they felt they had missed the mark, when they felt that they had forgotten their spiritual center, that they had strayed from the practices that were enjoined to them, then there was a way for them to be forgiven. There was a way for them to be brought back into the community. And the way to do that was to offer some of the best of what you own to atone. There were sacrifices that were made to make oneself whole. Right, when we felt that either our family was divided or ourselves felt divided within ourselves, we felt conflicted, we felt that we kind of were falling apart. Well, there was a way, a journey, a practice through this sacrifice to make yourself whole again. Right? It was a real ceremony to invite one to really kind of feel again at home within oneself. And there were sacrifices to invite the recognition of the divine presence in one's life, in one's heart, in one's soul. So the sentiment underneath the ritual was actually very profound. And at the time where people really believed that that sacrifices worked. There was really, what was beautiful about that they were given a way to heal. They were given a way to atone, to forgive and be forgiven. That's incredible. That's incredible. There was a specific passage that I wrote down here that called me this week. It says, "The God commands the Israelites to bring their animals at the entrance of the tent of meeting, in the midst of the entire people traveling through the wilderness," or in this case, standing at Sinai or camping at Sinai. There was a special tent at the center of the community. There was the tent of meeting. It was known to, it's not like we had meetings there, so I'll meet you at 3 o'clock in the tent. That's not what it was for. It was the tent of meeting the divine. Right? There is this notion that the presence was right at the center of the community, and you could go somewhere to be bathed in that energy, to be bathed in that presence. And at the entrance of the tent of meeting, you could, and I quote, offer your sacrifices. Oh, no, then there was an admonition. Sorry, I'm misreading this. There was an admonition as you were offering your personal heart offering. The admonition was that the Israelites should offer the sacrifices no more to the goat demons after whom they stray. Right? Offer your sacrifices no more to the goat demons after whom they stray. There's been a lot of talk about goats this week. I don't know if you're following the news. There was this thing that happened in politics this week. The governor of South Dakota, I was going to say, what's her name? Who published a book. Noam. Christy Noam. Yeah. It was all over everything. Yeah, but it was just like the day after Passover, the day after we sang Chad Gadya, right? And suddenly this woman is in, so Chad Gadya is the song where, it's a children's song, but it's kind of it's the song you sing after 4 cups of wine at the end of Passover, right? So you know what kind of a song it is, right? But it's the song where you say, there was a little goat, and then the cat ate the goat, and the dog bit the cat, and you go through a whole list of different things that happened to the little goat. And this woman was talking in her book was talking about how she actually shot her dog and her goat, and I was like, what happened? This is Passover all over again. Anyway, so here comes the goat demons. Do not offer your sacrifices anymore to the goat demons after whom you stray. And it's actually really powerful language to use the word stray here. It's like you've gone astray, that you've left, you lost it. You've left the presence of the one. And I think the injunction here, or the admonition here, relates to the word, specifically the word sacrifice. Because like I was starting to tell you, but that practice of sacrifices was deeply personal, right? It was deeply spiritual and deeply personal. Because like the word in Hebrew is not actually, it's a mistranslation to use sacrifice as what actually the process was. The word is korban. Korban, that's what in Hebrew we are using to define what has come in English to be known as the sacrifices. But korban comes from the Hebrew root karov, that means to draw near. So it's not a sacrifice, but it's a means in order to draw near to spirit. That's what the whole ritual was about. It was an invitation to come closer to source, to come closer to spirit. And so, in a society, again, we have to understand that in that society at the time, to give the best of your flock, I was going to say it was an immense sacrifice in the sense that, you're giving the best of your own livelihood, right? Animals were like I don't want to exaggerate, but they were almost akin to family members, right? You drew everything from animals. You drew your food, you drew your clothing. I mean, animals were your wealth. Animals were everything you own and everything you had. So to come and bring the most beautiful, pristine part of your animal family to be offered up was an incredible act of karov, of drawing near. You did it with great kavanah, with great intention. With great intention. You were invited to remember that even your prized possessions were in fact not yours, right? They belong to the greater presence. You were sent here and you had them, borrowed for a short amount of time to serve you, but they're not yours, right? So there was also a sense of remembering, of deep humility, of becoming really humble in the face of the presence to acknowledge with gratitude the gifts of our possessions that are not our possessions. Nothing is our possessions. Anything and anytime we think that we possess something or someone, we are reminded that everything is just sandcastles. Everything is just sandcastles. I was sharing earlier one of my favorite teachings. I broke something, a piece of glass in my home that I kind of cherished, and I was reminded the teaching from my teacher Adyashanti, who said, long ago, I remember as a practice to know that everything is always already broken. Everything is always already broken. So those practices, even the practices of korban, were practices to surrender control, to surrender this notion of possession, to surrender this notion of permanence as well. It was really a profound thing. I mean, with the tools of the time, Each offering really was a means to support a surrender of the ego-based attachments. Right? We were to surrender ego-based attachments, everything we so attached to. And the truth of the matter is that's what prayer is for. Like in our tradition, prayers after the destruction of the temple and therefore the sacrifice, the ritual of sacrifice stopped, the rabbis of the 1st and 2nd century, all the way through the 6th and 7th century, codified another way to draw near to the divine through the words of prayer that we read tonight, actually. Those were put together 2,000 years ago. But the point, if you read the prayers, they're not prayers to, they're not praying at. They really, every time you read, that's why I was inviting some of you to read in English, because they are not prayers as we understand petition prayers. They are affirmations of deeper truth. That's what they stand for. Affirmations of deeper truth to support us to recognize once again, like I mentioned earlier, the oneness of being that animates all being, which is what the sacrifices were meant to. And so the injunction here to stop worshiping or sacrificing to goat demons. Why is that important? Why is it important? Because sacrificing to goat demons really was pagan worship. But pagan worship was different than Jewish worship in the sense that they were meant to appease the gods, right? It was transactional. It was, I'm going to sacrifice this animal so that the rain, will come to my field in the right time, right? So that I can be prosperous or whatever. It was much more petition oriented, to get what we want. It was really to get some of the things we do. People do that often. Is like, God, do this for me, and if you do this for me, I will go to temple every week. I will eat kosher until next Sunday. It's Friday. Yes, I can do that. right? But we still do that, right? We think of God as the great concierge. The great concierge that, we can ask for what we want. And that's what the injunction is calling to stop doing. That's not what deeper spirituality is inviting us into, right? All the animal sacrifice, the Jewish animal sacrifice, were for yourself. They were means of atonement, of making yourself whole, of healing community and self, of recognizing the presence. They were not meant to twist God's hand or arm in order to get the Mercedes-Benz that you really want for your 53rd birthday. I'm good with my car, thank you. And so I think in a lot of ways to call out this pagan worship was to say, look, pagan worship is actually from a place of fear, from a place of lack, from a place of neediness. And that's not what the practice is about. The practice is about opening your heart to recognize your abundance, to recognize love, not fear. And we do that, we haven't stopped. The injunction is still valid today. We still engage often in religious practices from a place of fear. Fear of hell, for example. I know some people who have converted to all the existing religions just before their death, just in case. You don't know which one is real and true. So you want to have an insurance. So you buy insurance, you convert to all the existing religions, and your odds are better. But you do that from a place of fear. I'm actually not kidding. People do that. I'm serious. Maybe not to all the religions, but you edge your bets. It's like, all right, is there really a hell or not? We also do this from a place of fear because we are concerned with not complying with the rules of the community, right? So this fear of being excommunicated, of not belonging, right? It's not just religious. We can see in identity politics today. Identity politics is the 21st century religion, and the same patterns are at play. We can see it every day. And so in a lot of ways, there are practices where, just like we exploit the animal to get to what we want in pagan worship, so do we manipulate and exploit scriptures or prayers to manipulate God, So we think, because our ego wants what it wants. Our ego wants what it wants. And even, okay, I'm going to be really mean. Even in meditation practices, even in those of us who are deeply spiritual. Some of us are deeply spiritual so that we can really lord over others who are not. I am deeply spiritual. Yeah, I meditate because I want to get something. I meditate because I was told that if you meditate, you're going to get all these benefits. And I want those benefits in my life. But then who is meditating? Your ego is meditating. The practice, true meditation is not about adding more to your ego. It's actually removing, it's becoming less. I love that from Ken Wilber. He actually says that I'm not going to do it justice, but he says spiritual practices are not about enhancing the self, as many of us think it is. It's not about enhancing the self, it's about making the self toast. So it's about less, it's about what the sacrifices are about. It's about non-attachment. It's about developing within us this quality of non-attachment, this quality of deep surrender. It's about engaging in life as the practice of meditation invites us into lishma, for its own sake. Living life for its own sake. That's hard for us Westerners who have always been told that we have to achieve something, that we have to find a goal and follow that goal and pursue that goal and achieve that goal. Well, spirituality is like, no, forget about all of that. Can you get to a place where you live life just because, for its own sake? Life is worth living just because. Yehiyu l'ratzon. It's the beginning of the song we're going to sing now. It's a song, but it really comes from a prayer. And it's a beautiful prayer because it's also an affirmation. Yehiyu l'ratzon, it's a prayer, it's an affirmation to our own surrender. To our own surrender. Yehiyu l'ratzon means, let me get out of the way. Let me recognize that all that exists, all that is actually, is the manifestation of you, Holy One, who are this being, this conduit. Let me get out of your way. Let me surrender. Let me be a conduit for my heart to speak love, to speak compassion, to speak wisdom. That's the prayer, that's the song. That's, to me, the meaning of this verse in Torah this week. We're on page 11.